This is episode 23 of Art, Why I Stuck with a Junkie Jazz Man. In episode 22, I discovered Al-Anon. In episode 23, I abandon Al-Anon and have a nervous breakdown. I recommend Al-Anon and its philosophy to relatives of alcoholics and addicts. It works. It'll keep you sane. What made me give it up then? I think it was ambition. In July of 1976, I had a nervous breakdown. At the time, it seemed to be the result of a tattoo I got. But now I think the tattoo was a symptom, and the misery began a little bit before and was triggered by several things together. I'd dropped Al-Anon, my source of sanity. I'd failed to get the book published, and as you'll soon see, I was unable to deal with the new role I'd taken on as arts manager and keeper. In 1976, Art recorded an album called The Trip with Elvin Jones, David Williams, and George Cables. Once again, Les Koenig put the band together. Art knew none of these guys, but fell in love with all of them. He hero-worshipped Elvin. The album was a stunner and got great reviews and a lot of attention. And it seemed to put Art in fingertip touching distance of a more real, more public success, which he wanted, and I wanted for him and for myself. It was too tempting. After that album, Art became so eager, so convincingly rededicated to his career and willing to work with me to advance it. He wanted and needed me to take over, so I did. I dropped the Al-Anon philosophy and rejoined the unwinnable game of attempting to manage an alcoholic addict. Before he wound up in Synanon, Art had recorded for a number of small record companies, and he'd made 5 exceptionally fine albums for Les Koenig's Contemporary Records. When the Living Legend album was recorded with its new original compositions, Contemporary became the publisher who would pay royalties to the composer, Art, on record sales. Mechanical royalties, they're called. But in addition, Les explained to me, as the composer of tunes on those releases, Art was entitled to additional royalties whenever those albums were played on the air, performance royalties. In order to collect those, Art would have to do what he'd failed to do in the past: sign up with one of the 2 American collection companies, BMI or ASCAP. So I affiliated Art with BMI because they handled Contemporary's publishing. I got interested in airplay and album sales. After the 2 new albums had been released, Art started getting letters from fans asking where they could find his albums. They'd tried all their local record stores and found nothing there. These letters came from big cities like Detroit and Chicago, places where you'd assume such albums could be found. When we got a letter from a DJ complaining that Contemporary refused to send them a free disc to play on the air, I decided to discuss it with Les. First, I checked our local LA record stores. Art's records weren't there either. I made an appointment and went to his office. I brought a notebook with me, and in the spirit of an eager acolyte, thanked him for telling me about BMI. But I wondered why Art's records weren't in the stores. He said, "The distributor doesn't have the manpower to check whether the stores are sold out or not. They have to wait for a reorder, and then they'll fill it. Helpfully, I jumped right in. I'll do it. I'll do it for free. I'll check for them and let them know. Put me in touch with the distributor. Les said, okay, I'll call him up. He did right then and offered my suggestion. I don't know what the fellow said to him, but after he hung up the phone, Les's mood had changed. And he said, taking it out on me, they don't have time to teach you how to do this. They don't want to talk to you. And neither do I about this. You don't know anything about it. I said defiantly, I know that whenever art plays in a club in town, people complain that they can't find the records. He gets fan letters from people all over the country, and they can't find them. We got a letter from a DJ in Cleveland saying that you don't send out albums when they ask for them, so he can't play them on the radio. So even though I have affiliated art with BMI, what good will it do? Les had been containing his rage, but it came out now. He stood up behind his desk, behind those intimidating eyebrows, indicating that he was done talking to me, and thundered, if a DJ at a radio station wants a record, he can pay for it like everybody else. I stood up, too, raised my voice, too. Great, great, and I'm sure he would if he could. But unfortunately, he can't find the records in the stores because they aren't there. Les was yelling at me now. Musicians' wives and girlfriends are always whining about no records in the stores, and they don't know what they're talking about. I'd been dismissed. Shaking, I walked out. I think I've said I'm not in touch with my feelings. I'm not the kind of person who broods or even thinks. When I'm upset, I act. Often mistakenly, I have to do something about everything that bothers me, and right away, right now. My fight with Les had me quivering with rage and humiliation, hating him, hating my helplessness. He'd crushed me in his world. Well, then I'd scorn his world. There was a hipper world to live in, a world where I made the decisions. I decided to get a tattoo. I was such an idiot, a child. Only bikers, sailors, and jailbirds had tattoos back then. I drove from Les's office to the Sunset Strip. I got a tattoo, and it drove me insane. I had been thinking about getting a small tattoo. I had an acne scar right near my breastbone. I'd thought of covering it with a little flower or something. That day, after leaving Les's office, I parked in front of a shop I'd noticed on the Strip. Cliff Raven, tattoos. Inside the shop, on the walls, instead of the usual array of cartoony snakes, skulls, and naked women, there were beautiful Japanese dragons, delicate birds. There were photos of girls practically dressed in tattoos. The owner was working on a young man's entire back, putting a coiled dragon on in vibrant, saturated colors. The place was filled with books of astonishing and brand new to me body art from all over the world. It was arcane information for most people in those days. The owner's boyfriend was hanging out, cleaning, organizing. His left arm, shoulder to wrist, was draped with the image of a languid yellow spider chrysanthemum. My favorite flower, as it happens. I was dazzled. I asked Cliff how much a tattoo would cost, and he named a price per hour. I winced at the amount. He surveyed me in my office clothes, the outfit I'd put on to talk to Les. He asked, "Do you take shorthand?" Speed writing had been one of my courses at the West Valley Occupational Center, and I'd done okay at it. I told him yes. He said he'd just been elected Best American Tattooist by the readers of some journal. He pointed at a giant cardboard box. The box was full of fan mail he didn't have the time to answer. He said, "If you can read them to me while I work, and then take down my answers, take them home, type them, and address them, I'll tattoo you for free." There were a lot of letters. I asked him greedily, "Could you give me that?" I pointed at his boyfriend's arm. He told me yes. I pulled a letter from the box and began to read it to him. I don't remember the sequence of what happened after that. I vaguely remember typing out the letters. I remember getting the tattoo outlined, which hurt, but not that badly. The colors would be added when the outline healed. I remember wondering dizzily why everybody didn't get one. But I remember this quite clearly. That night, when I got home, a panic hit me. My heart started pounding, and I felt as if I couldn't breathe. I was suddenly desperately frightened by what I'd done to myself. Art tried to console me, saying that the tattoo was just bigger than what I'd planned and I'd have to get used to it, but it was really beautiful, and he'd like to go to the guy and get his ugly prison tattoos covered. That was sweet, but didn't help. I called my cousin Evie. I said I felt as if I, myself, was somehow permanently altered and not for the better. She laughed. "Yeah, now you can never have tea with the president." She said, "Now you're an artist's Moll." She didn't manage to jolly me out of what was turning into spiraling and terrified despair. I had let some stranger, not Picasso or Monet, but just some guy with a shop up on the strip, draw a permanent doodle on my only flesh. I would never be able to have tea with the president. I'd never be elegant or naked again. I would always look like some weirdo and have to wear high-necked shirts forever. I'd been altered for the worse, and not by age or accident. I'd done it to myself. I didn't even like the image of the flower now. It didn't look anything like the graceful picture on the artist's boyfriend's arm. I went into a full-blown anxiety attack, the first of thousands. Hard banging, rapid heartbeat, dizziness, cellular level terror that abated only briefly and returned, kicked off by anything at all. Ominous music from Art's incessant television, a murk-colored shadow on the wall, the scent of perfume or garbage, a sinister word either heard or just imagined, cropping up like a whisper, like they do sometimes in my brain. Once they'd begun, these attacks continued over hours, and then days and weeks, like some crazy misfiring burglar alarm in my body. I slept only to wake to them again. I couldn't sit down, could only pace in some pattern which soothed or mirrored my ongoing inner chaos. I quit my typesetting job. The tattoo outline hurt and burned with every movement, reminding me of itself and of my unerasable stupidity. In the first days of remorse, what I did was call around, my voice shaking, to find out about removal. Yes, it could be done, I was told by someone at UCLA Medical, but it would cost the earth and leave a scar. Then my attention left the tattoo and turned to my mental state, which was, after about a week, in shambles. I stopped caring about the damn tattoo and began to wonder whether I even wanted to continue living in what was turning out to be a constant state of pacing, stuttering alarm alternating with spells of blank grief during which I could hardly speak, could hardly move. I could drive. Les Koenig had underwritten our brand new Oldsmobile, a gorgeous big red car with velvet seats and with an 8-track tape deck in it. I'd drive around doing my necessary chores, imitating a normal human being, listening to Paul Simon's tender little voice singing about most folks' lives. They stumble, Lord, they fall, through no fault of their own. And my tears poured down, endangering no one. I drove so slowly. When I saw a dead animal in the road, I envied it. I told Art to hide our gun because I dearly wanted to die. Art would hold me, try to reassure me. He was very patient, kind, but nothing worked to help me. I went to a public health psychiatrist. In those days, 1976 in California, we had those kinds of things. Our taxes paid for them. I saw a gentle fellow who asked to see the tattoo and told me he thought it was lovely. And he referred me for regular counseling to Olive View, a clinic set in a woodsy, pleasant set of ramshackle, earthquake-damaged, big wooden bungalows out in the West Valley. At that pretty place, among tall eucalyptus trees, 3 times a week I talked to a compassionate therapist named Shirley. A little sign in her office explained what a panic attack basically was, hyperventilation, and how it could be stopped, slow breathing into a paper bag. I began to carry a paper bag everywhere with me and remembered the one Charlie Hayden had brought to Art's session and the fancy words his doctor had given him for its need and use. The panics eased a bit, finally leaving only scattered, sharp episodes, the most intense being every morning at first light, the heart-banging, desolate terror which I experienced for many years after. If this book is about anything, it's about how stupid and or crazy you can be and still survive, even prevail. It's also about luck.